We are live. We are live. We are live. Woo!
Happy Monday.
Okay.
Oh,
Hear us out. Hear us out, please. Today will be very, very, and I mean very, very detail oriented. The purpose of today's podcast is twofold. We are going to do what obviously nobody else wants to do because I have not seen a single soul do this yet. They've asked for the Project 2025 people to come and talk, but they've never actually brought up the plan on screen. Not a single podcaster is doing this. Nobody on YouTube is doing this. Nobody on Rumble is doing this. We are the first, and hopefully we'll be the only ones that are going to do this because I think it's about time we stop letting the media control things and we need to start the narrative people doing their own research.
facts.
So what we are going to do is break down Project 2025 in detail and then contrast it to Agenda 47 in detail. And then on Wednesday, we are going to break down the Democrat plan that was actually proposed to Biden that he actually is implementing in his administration, unlike what they want to propose that Trump is doing, which he has not done, not even since the thing was made. So with that saying, we have a special guest with us today, Mr. Lumberjack himself, in case y'all don't know him, okay? He is what we would like to call our resident constitutionalist. And so he knows that. Coy knows a lot of history, and the rest of us knows the social world. So it'll be a very well-rounded conversation. And if you have questions, bring it up. Rumble is in the house. Twitter's in the house. YouTube is in the house. And Facebook is in the house.
And if you are on TikTok, he goes by the effervescent name of The American Lumberjack.
The American Lumberjack.
Go follow.
Hey, it looks like we're actually getting comments from Rumble.
Yes, we are. It got different. It got a permanent stream key.
Nice.
So that is good. So what we'll do without further ado, we are going to bring to your attention the infamous Project 2025 by the Conservative Promise by Kevin Roberts, PhD, edited by Paul Dans and Stephen Groves. Now, question to the panel. What have we heard about Agenda 2025 in terms of talking points from the media that we are looking to debunk in here? What have they said is going on with Agenda?
It's an extremist platform that's going to create Trump into a dictator, and that it's going to be all hell for everyone.
Okay,
it's the introduction to fascism in America.
Dictator document.
It's the way for the
here,
Republicans to erase everything Joe Biden has accomplished during it.
I've heard that one.
Administration.
Hang on, I got my mouse is.
All right, so
out on me,
dictator.
but
What was the one? Dictator.
Here,
Republican.
I'll show you. This photo sums up exactly what they think. Right here, Marlon.
That's
what they think he's going to do.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
you know, the statue needs to go away, but yes. Now, remember, they said this document is the end of America as we know it, or sorry, the end of democracy.
Their democracy.
And I pulled that from a lefty Twitter, by the way.
Well, that's what they do.
Oh, yeah.
Mandate for leadership.
Hyperbole.
The Conservative Promise. Dun dun dun. All right, so let's do this. We won't go through their so let's go to the table of contents first, okay? I won't be worrying about their advisory board. I don't worry about that. The authors, the contributors don't care about none of that. Why? Because it doesn't matter. What we want is this. Section 1, taking the reins of government. Section 2, common defense. 3, the general welfare. 4, the economy. 5, independent regulatory agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go, right? So those are the 5. So let's begin with the very first one. Taking the reins of government. White House, executive of the President of the United States, central personal agencies managing the bureaucracy. So let's go there. All right. And of course, they're going into history. We want to make sure people understand we're taking our time. America's bicentennial, which accumulated in January 4th, 1976, was a spirited and unifying celebration of our country and its founding and its ideals. As we approach the nation's 250th anniversary, which would take place during the next presidency, America is now divided between two opposing forces: woke revolutionaries and those who believe in the ideals of the American Revolution. You see, that might have been the word that they they got mad about. The former believed that America is and has always been systematically racist, or sorry, me do it like Mike does, systematically racist, and that is not worth celebrating and must be fundamentally transformed, largely through a centralized administrative state. The latter believe America's history and heroes, its principles and promise in everyday Americans and everyday American way of life. They believe that the Constitution and Republican government, conservatives and Americanists is in the battle. We must fight for the soul of America, which is much at stake. Any problems with that so far?
Yeah, and go to a point in the beginning where you talked about the 250th anniversary of our country. It said that somewhere, right? Now, now, do you remember when Trump talked about that? Was it last week, where he said he's going to have a celebration on the 250th anniversary? So you got to understand that when he said that, and he said this is how they're starting to, connect the dots, because he's almost, regurgitating or saying what this document is saying.
But it's almost a conflation in a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, here's the thing that people misunderstand about this document in the first place is that this is just a wish list of people that want what they want to have happen, not that Trump actually wants this. It's what their wish list is for Trump, even though he doesn't care about it in the first place. There's going to be overlaps here,
right?
Especially since the guy that wrote this was in his administration, so that's how they're trying to connect him to that. But he's no longer with him. He's not even running in his campaign. So why would that matter? A lot of people that were with Trump in the beginning were against him. So just pointing that out.
Let's see if I can get this. There we go. Nice and big. Ooh, nice and big. Y'all can read that now, right?
Yeah.
Just 2 years after the death of the last surviving Constitutional Convention delegate, James Madison Abraham Lincoln warned that the greatest threat to America would come not from without, but from within. Even Reagan said the same thing. This is, of course, you know who he was quoting, but this is evident today, whether it be mask and vaccine mandates, school and business closures, efforts to keep Americans from driving gas cars using gas stoves, or efforts to defund the police, indoctrinate children, alter beloved books, abridge free speech, and underestimate the colorblind ideal, or identify biological reality that there are only two sexes. The left's steady stream of insanity appears to be never ending. The next administration must stand up for the American ideals, American families, and American culture, all things which thankfully most Americans believe.
Here's the thing.
At least half still believe that.
But he's not wrong.
No.
So
therein lies the problem, I think.
Right.
Now, understand who's making the claim. They don't like American family ideals. They think all children should be indoctrinated. They're about the euthanization of children, and they're about the castration of children. So when somebody comes along and say that's bad, you're automatically placed in you're anti-freedom and anti-America, even though you're the one that's anti-freedom and anti-America. They want to make sure that you blur the line, so you right for wrong, wrong for right. Want to make sure we get that clear. So this is one of their issues with the document. It's going against their plan. Highlighting the need from former director of the Office of Management and Budget, Ross Vaught, writes in Chapter 2, the modern conservative president's task is to limit, control, and direct the executive branch on behalf of the American people. Is that true, Lumberjack?
Put
you on the spot right away.
Yeah, no, I'm here for it. So the modern conservative president's task is to limit, control, and direct the executive branch. People don't read Article 2. What is the president's job? His job is outlined in Article 2, and anything under the executive branch. I mean, we don't hire managers for positions and jobs and tell them, oh, you're only able to manage this, and this, but these people work under you, but these people can tell you what to do. So it's just kind of like it's the wording is trash, but it's not bad.
It's not
false.
Right.
No.
Right. So up until this point, after Kennedy was assassinated by the U.S. government, mainly the CIA, they have decided that they no longer answer to the president and that the president answers to them. So I think that's where they're coming from. Whether he can actually do that is a different question. And the other thing is, they said conservative president. They didn't say Donald Trump. I want to point that out specifically.
Facts. Donald Trump doesn't proclaim to be a conservative.
Yeah, no. He's a Republican. He's running as a Republican.
He's a New York moderate. He always has been.
JFK Democrat, I like to call him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yep. So we found already something in the book, in this mandate, that makes a lot of sense. At the core of its goal, the work is of the White House and the central personal agencies. Article 2. Hey, look.
There you go.
There you
Hey,
go.
they mentioned it. Yeah.
What are the odds they mentioned Article 2? Article 2 of the Constitution vests all federal power, executive power in the president, made accountable to citizenry through regular elections. Our founders wrote, the executive power shall be vested in the president of the United States of America. Accordingly, Vought wrote, it is the president's agenda that should matter in the departments and agencies, not their own.
Yes.
Which is true. Which we had Milley lie to Donald Trump when he was in office that we didn't have as many troops in Syria as they claimed, and he tried to remove them, and he lied to him.
And
Well,
he thinks he's above him.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And that was the fault of the doctrine they just removed, the Chevron Doctrine that they just removed. That delegated power to the three-letter agencies that were under the executive branch to be able to basically run amok with this obscure version of the laws, and they were able to implement their own rules. So when you remove the Chevron Doctrine, that actually makes them beholden to the actual manager, which is the president.
Yeah, precisely. Yet the federal bureaucracy has a mind of its own. Federal employees are often ideologically aligned, not with the majority of American people, but with one another, posing a profound problem for the Republican government, a government of the people and for the people. As Donald Devine, Dennis Kirk, and Paul Dans write in Chapter 3, the autonomous bureaucracy has neither independent constitutional status nor separate moral legitimacy. Byzantine personnel rules provide the bureaucrats with their chief means of self-protection. What's more, knowledge of such rules is used to thwart the president's appointees and agenda, which we have seen in full force during Trump's administration.
Yes.
Devine, Kirk, and Dans were managing the immense bureaucracy of the federal government is impossible without an understanding of the key central personal agencies and their governing laws and regulations. Now, I will tell you this: so far in this document, they have stuck point for point to the Constitution.
Yes.
This explains why the left does not like it thus far.
Because they hate the Constitution. Yeah.
If you remember, their entire goal is to make government bigger than everything else, and not just the government as it's supposed to be, but the government by a certain amount of people. The three letters are supposed to be bigger in their mind than anything else, and the president should just be a pawn of Congress and Senate.
Right.
That's what they want.
And here's the thing: is like the left keeps saying that basically the president doesn't have the right to fire agency heads or bureaucrats, even though that's literally his position, is to be able to appoint and fire people as he wishes. They serve at the pleasure of the president. That's always been said. They serve at the pleasure of the president. What it is that right now is we're in a state like it was in China when they still had the emperor, that the eunuchs are running the show and the emperor has no power. That's what it is. So the president is being run by the eunuchs in our agencies. And I mean that literally in that sense, that they are eunuchs.
That explains why Biden doesn't actually do anything.
Yep.
Exactly.
That explains everything.
Well, he's also incapable.
So. Well, you know.
Listen
here. I remember, okay, that stuff and the article, R5, the Art of War. Many of these laws and regulations governing a largely underworked, overcompensated. I totally love that line. Many of these laws and regulations governing a largely underworked and overcompensated and unaccountable federal civilian workforce is so irrational that they would be comical in a less important context. Factual, because if you were running any other business and your workers were telling you how much they got paid and were the ones doing your payroll and paying you, that would be an upside down business, and you'd eventually go out of business.
100%.
This is true whether it comes from evaluating employees' performance, and look, they're talking about it, and hiring new ones. Only the federal government could an applicant in the hiring process be sent to the front of the line because of history of drug addiction or alcoholism, or due to morbid obesity, irritable bowel syndrome, or a psychiatric disorder. The next administration should insist that the federal government hiring, evaluation, retention, and compensation practices benefit taxpayer rather than benefiting the lowest rung of the federal workforce.
Well, in this part right here that we're reading through right now, when I've engaged with certain individuals that are daft by nature or remedial, as I like to call them, they say this is authoritarianism and they shouldn't have this much power. And then you ask, have you read Article 2? Well, that is the authoritarian portion of the Constitution. And I said, are there checks and balances for this individual? Well, yes. Okay, then how is it authoritarianism if these individuals indeed have checks and balances and can be removed? If I'm an authoritarian, you can't check, balance, remove, or stop me. It's their dippity is to give you another word.
The only way for a president to be an actual true authoritarian and dictator would be to dissolve Congress and the Senate.
Thank you.
That would be the only way.
And burn the Constitution to the ground.
Yeah, and burn that. Well, Obama kind of wanted to get rid of the Constitution because it was just a piece of paper,
Now, remember, too, the flip side to all of this that's happening is when you hear them say, this is a death to democracy, is what they're saying is it's a death to what they're trying to do, which is democracy. Mm-hmm. America was never built that way. And what they really want, this is why you hear all the time they talk about getting rid of the Electoral College. Mm-hmm. They want to do that because they want mob rule.
Yep.
Yes.
And if mob
they
rules,
want to eliminate states.
They'll be loudest. They are the loudest right now. Let's just be honest. They're the loudest. But then again, they usually have ways to make themselves not only the loudest, but the most influential as well. Yeah. There's a section here I want to go it's the rest of it here in case y'all thinking I'm skipping anything. They're repeating pretty much the same thing over and over. So I'm going to go to this point. Above all, the president and those who serve under him or her, so much for it being a patriarchal document. I mean, come on. Or her must be committed to the Constitution and the rule of law. This is particularly true of a conservative administration, which knows that the president is there to uphold the Constitution, not the other way around. If a conservative administration does not respect the Constitution, no administration will. 1 billion, trillion, jillion % true. In Chapter 1, former Deputy Chief of the Staff, President Rick Dearborn, writes in the White House Counsel, must take seriously the duty to protect the powers and privileges of the president from encroachments by Congress, the judiciary, and administrative components of the departments and agencies. Equally important, the president must enforce the Constitution and laws as written rather than proclaiming new law unilaterally. President should not issue mask or vaccine mandates, arbitrarily transfer student loan debt, which is factual, or issue monarchical mandates of any sort. Yeah. Legislatures make the laws in a republic, not executives.
I don't. The first part of that is kind of snaky language to me.
How so?
Like, because the encroachment by Congress, the judiciary, and the administrative. I get the administrative part because they've been doing that for a while. The judiciary has its own issues where they're trying to rule by the bench, which isn't true. The Congress needs to make the laws. Like, the encroachment by Congress is okay because that's what they're supposed to do. Congress is supposed to be a check on the executive branch. So encroachment by Congress is a natural part of the Constitution. It's supposed to happen that way. Yeah, you can fight back against it and you shouldn't be overruled by Congress, but then you also can't rule by decree, which is what they're talking about. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like I said, it's snaky almost.
Well, I don't know about snaky. It may have been poorly worded with the word encroaching. I think overreach would have been a much better word.
Yeah, it would have been.
Overreach or abuse of position. Encroachment would be a poor decision. So right off the top, yes, I can easily see that being a bad way to word it. But again, the way that what they're talking about is directly fundamentally correct. It is not a lie that how they lay out the powers in this first chapter is true. For a long time, and I would say going back as far as Nixon, you can see I would say that what was going on in the background finally came to the forefront and became the blanket thing to happen now in the American government, where the president lost most of its leniency and power.
Well, I think it goes back further than that. I would go back all the way to Woodrow Wilson, if you want to be completely honest. Yeah. Or maybe even further back than that. From if you really dive deep into it, you see no. I'm trying to be layman's here without speaking over anyone's head in the
No,
comments.
just say it. Just say it. Don't be layman. We're not here.
Let's be
We have an intelligent
frank.
crowd.
Let's be frank. Congress doesn't have any real checks or balances, and so when they say encroaching, I it sounds bad. It can be perceived as snaky, but who checks Congress? Congress spends money however they want. So if the president doesn't approve what Congress says, Congress just says, okay, Senate, we're going to 2/3 majority and we're going to overrule him. It rarely happens or has happened, but at the same time, they have power that is not really in check really at all, because the judicial branch can say, oh, that's not constitutional, and then they curtail the speech, not the law that they're trying to implement, but the speech of the law they're trying to implement. And Congress is like, oh, well, that's different now. This is constitutional, but in all actuality, it's the same law with prettier words or less prettier words. And then the president's like, I'm not going to pass that. And then they 2/3 him. So Congress has no real check and balance. They are in control of the money. They can overrule the president, and they can silver tongue the judicial branch. So really, it is an overreach in every way, shape, and form. And they need more constitutional checks and balances put on them if you want to be frank, because 13 through 27 only it gives them power.
Gotcha.
So here's my thing is that the reason why we're having an issue with Congress is because the check was supposed to be the people that were in there, right?
Agreed.
The different representatives. So if you have an establishment, like an actual uniparty that's happening, and then you have an administrative state that backs up the uniparty, and everybody votes the same way or how they're supposed to, there's no checks. Obviously, you're supposed to have a robust party system with multiple parties inside of Congress to check each other. That was the entire point. There was never supposed to be a unified rule in Congress.
Well, if you look at the first Constitution, which is the Virginia Constitution, and a lot of our United States Constitution is written out of that actually gives the power to the people. So it fundamentally dissolving the ability to read and comprehend for yourself like they've done, because the United States has a 6th or 5th grade reading comprehension level in math, 75% of them. In doing that, dissolving their ability to comprehend and read for themselves, they've essentially neutered the one real check and balance, because in the Virginia Constitution, it says that we have the power through the pen to recall these people and remove them for doing for dereliction of duty. Hell, we could even remove Supreme Court justices for the good behavior doctrine that's in the Constitution. So it's people don't know what they're doing, so therefore they let the Congress run wild, free like a bronco.
Yeah,
and this is you alluding to the idea of bringing your grievances and redresses to your Congress.
Right.
First constitutional amendment. Yes,
and it also explains why they're so hell bent on changing the voting laws and how voting is done. Now, if you can do that and make it seem as though what was there before is bad for you, and how we're changing it now is good for you, but in essence, what we're doing is using what we've done to you, making you stupider because you went to Jupiter. It enhances their power, because now you can no longer dictate anything, change anything. Because say, for instance, you decide that you don't want them. They never tell you, like you say, you can recall. And they also change the way you can and can't vote. If they've done that, in essence, they've used the system correctly for adverse means. So in essence, they know exactly what they're doing, but they're going about it and I will give them credit. It is one intelligent way to make yourself a dictator. You dumb the population down, and if the population is too stupid to know what they're supposed to do, you can tell them, this is what you're supposed to do. Just like you see now, the parrots, they'll talk whatever you tell them to talk. It's now happening educationally throughout the whole of the government. So it's planned. It is crucial that all three branches of the federal government respect what Madison called the double security of our liberties, the separation of powers among the three branches and the separation of powers between the federal government and all states. This double security has been greatly compromised over the years. 100% true. Vogt writes that the modern executive branch writes federal policies, enforces that policy, and often adjudicates whether that policy was properly drafted and enforced. He describes this as constitutionally dire and in urgent need of repair 100%. Adding nothing less than survival of self-governance is in America is at stake. And this is what they don't want. Remember now, what did Joe say before he ran? You can't do anything without us. We, the people, are the government.
Yeah.
That was not a Freudian slip. It was not a slip of the tongue. It wasn't, oh, I misspoke. No, he is saying out loud, because he has dementia, the quiet part. We, the people, are the government, which is what the goal of their party is to do. Make the citizenry dependent on modern day government, so that whatever government mandates, they follow. And if you make them stupid enough, it'll be like wearing these Oculus. You just stuck. You just stuck there.
Meta. This is what I this is what I keep saying before, is that this is the neo-nobility, right? Is these class people that like having the power. They want to centralize control to them. And there's an entire establishment and party behind that upholds that neo-nobility, the very Ivy Leagues, the very wealthy people. All these people are incongruent with each other, and they're in Congress with each other. Let's say that.
Yeah. So we have one question, and I want to make sure that we give us whoever wants to take a bite at this, a synopsis of this. And I mean brief synopsis of it. Let me see if I can find that question. I want to make sure I get it, because I'm trying to go back and forth to see how far away that question was in Rumble. And it's a good question to have clarified, okay? Because I think we mentioned it, and because not many people have heard of this doctrine, because of course, and the government keeps it sequestered away, because if you know something, you know everything.
Were they asking about the Chevron Doctrine?
Yes, they want a breakdown of the Chevron Doctrine. There is it. Right
the easiest way to explain it is the fact that the Chevron Doctrine was that the administrative state could basically guess at the intentions of a law and then make rules and regulations based off of that gray area of intention instead of actually following what the law said. That's the simplest explanation of it.
So it was more like, okay, say Congress created a law about weapons, guns.
Yeah.
And then ATF doesn't understand. They can determine what they want they can get out of that law when it comes to citizenry. So the Constitution or the Congress can say no automatic weapons. ATF can go no automatic weapons, no magazines, and they can add to it. What the Chevron deference does, it makes it cut and dry, and anything that they want to add, they have to go back to Congress in order to get it passed. And that's the majorty of three-letter agencies.
As it should be.
Yeah, it deferred to their regulations versus what the actual law was.
Yes. So go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I have to bid you guys adieu, but I want to leave you with this in retrospect to what we were talking about, because really and truly in the beginning of Project 2025, which I do agree with majority of it, is neutering the Congress. Romans 1:18 says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness." And I'll stop there. You guys can read it for yourself in the comments later. These people in Congress, they know what's right. They know what they're doing, but they hold the truth behind a wall of unrighteousness, or as Joseph Goebbels would tell you, the big lie. And then they use the state to consistently protect the big lie, because the truth is the enemy of the big lie. And if the truth be revealed, then you would know how to shut them down. And this one portion of Project 2025, I agree with, because it's all constitutional. And they're saying, hey, we need to give the power that you guys have curtailed through the 12th and the 17th Amendment back to the people, back to the president, the executive branch where he had, and then remove all of these little laws like the Chevron Doctrine and let the president manage how he's supposed to, because they're supposed to manage these things, not these things manage him, as Marlon pointed out earlier. And we're in a bad way. Yes, we got a victory with the Chevron Doctrine being repealed, but there's so many other laws on the books and acts on the books that are just like the Chevron Doctrine that need to be removed so we, the people, can have our power back.
And freedom.
Agreed.
Yes.
And freedom.
Yes. But I got to go, guys. Yeah, I got to. Unfortunately, I have to take my son to the gym. So
okay. Well, if you
go
get
be a
back,
daddy.
we'll still be here. Come back in if you want to.
Yes, sir. I
It's
appreciate
open.
y'all. Y'all be good.
Yep.
So with this being said, we have now a foundation from the actual document itself that already proves one thing. Nothing in the coming statements that they're going to make should go against what they've already listed before, because I can see what they're already doing. They're laying their groundwork for why they think what they think. And if they're going about it the way I think they're going to go about it saying that under this, depending on the president we get, if he is a conservative one, he will rule conservatively, which is why we have the party types where we have. Don't get mad at the president when he passes something that is conservative, because he is a conservative president. It's not like a judge.
Yep.
A judge has to be impartial, not the president. The president that gets put in there by a certain type of people, conservative or left-leaning or Democrat, whatever you want to call it, will rule based on the people that voted for him, that back him. While at the same time, he has to do it within the confines of the Constitution. None of the laws that he's trying, or the agendas that he's pushing, can go against the Constitution, and he cannot act outside of the Constitution. Everything else within that has to operate based on what his belief structure is and the people that put him there.
Yes.
I don't know how this is difficult. If he is against abortion, he can afford to say that and propose things that will make sure it's limited. However, because that's not a right, he can actually just say no more if he wants to. Now, after that point, you can say, well, that's a bad thing. Say it all you want. You can't find in the Constitution where abortion is a right.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't do it. So this nonsense that they want to come, they want to put things as wishes, as though they are human rights. They're not. Like in any way, shape, form, or fashion, are they human rights? They're what you want. Then when you appoint a certain president, you get a certain result, which is why they say elections have consequences.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see here. So when it comes to ensuring that freedom can flourish, nothing is more important than deconstructing the centralized administrative state. 100% true. It has become too big. Political appointees who are answerable to the president and have decision-making authority in the executive branch are key to this essential task. The next administration must not cede authority to a nonpartisan expert who's pursue their own ends while engaging in groupthink, insulated from American voters. The following chapters detail how the next administration can be responsive to the American people, not the entrenched elites, how it can take care that all the laws are faithfully executed. That's the reason they put that in there, is because it's part of constitutional speak, not merely those that the president desire to see executed, and how it can achieve results and not be stymied by the unelected bureaucracy. I was going to say something about ATF. That's why this whole bump stock and all these additive, nonsensical so-called laws are unconstitutional and should not be laws at all, especially when they haven't been passed as laws. They're just at the discrepancy of ATF. Now, we've already seen somebody get killed because of what ATF deemed illegal, which was not illegal by any sort of law you can find. They just didn't want this person doing this, and they've already said, oh, you can do it. And okay, now you can't do it, and now we have the right to kill you. But they never had the right to tell me I couldn't do it to begin with.
And your dog. They kill you and your dog.
And your snake and whatever else is in your house. So what we see here is in this, at least in the first part, already right off the top, I see why the left hates this document. I can see exactly why they hate the document and why they will push to say, oh, it's extreme. It's not extreme. It's taking us back to what we're supposed to be.
That's right.
It's a curtailment of centralized power of the administrative state back to a constitutional level, which is what it's supposed to be. The Constitution is meant to curtail government. That's what it's always been. It's always been a limitation to government. It wasn't a things that give you rights or power to do. It's to say, hey, government, people in charge of the government, you can't do X.
Right. So I want to go to this particular section here, the chief of staff. As with most positions that will be covered in this first chapter, the chief of staff is also an assistant to the president. However, the chief is usually first among equals. Of all the presidential staff members, the chief is the most critical to implementation of the president's vision of the country. The chief also has dual role as manager of the staff of both the WHO and the executive office of the president. The chief of staff first managerial task is to establish an organizational chart for the WHO. It should be simple and contain clear lines of authority and responsibility to avoid conflicts. It should also identify specific points of contact for each element of the government outside the White House. These contacts should include the White House liaisons who are selected by the office of the presidential personnel. Now, again, what they're going to start expounding on is the role of the president by mandate of the Constitution. For too long, we have gone away from what role the president plays. We see him now as more of a role player. Okay, he goes to talk to foreign dignitaries. He makes presidential speeches. He might sign executive orders. Now, if you ask any American citizen what the president does, this is what they'll tell you. I'm telling you, oh, he can sign executive orders. He signs law. This is what they'll tell you. He puts things into law. He talks to international. He takes care of everything else. No. And that's the problem. We have no longer civics not being taught anymore.
Nope.
I know that for a fact because I watch my kids. They don't learn civics in school.
Mm-hmm. Let me correct something. The WHO that they're talking about is the White House office. They're not talking about the
World Health Organization.
And Marlon, and it makes sense when you talk about they've taken out civics. When you go back to your point about them dumbing down society, you know that's very important that you know the operation, how your government should function. So they can remove that from school. Anything they do, these kids that are coming up nowadays aren't going to know if it's right or wrong. They don't know the Constitution. Mm-hmm. They barely know the three branches of government. They don't know what the roles of each branch is. So if you get rid of it, they can just do whatever they want. And that's what the left doesn't want. They don't want people to be informed about how the government operates.
Precisely. So here we have receiving guidance from the president. The chief endeavors to implement the president's agenda because they have to have an agenda. Otherwise, they wouldn't call it a platform. Just so you know, every president, a person that's running for president brings to you what I want to see done for the American people. When you hear that, you decide if that fits you and you vote for them. And what you do is when you vote for them and they get in, you hope that they implement said things, again, under the Constitution. Not above, not outside of. The arcing thing that keeps everything correct is the Constitution. If it goes outside of it, you're not performing your duties correctly. Even if you don't live up to it, you're not performing your duties correctly. So yes, each president can indeed have an agenda by setting priorities for the WHO. Again, not the World Health Organization. The White House office. This process begins by taking stock of the president's campaign promises, identifying current and prospective opportunities, and then delegating policy priorities among the departments and agencies and cabinet throughout the three White House policy councils: the National Economic Council, Domestic Policy Council, and the National Security Council. And I'm betting you that not anybody that has gone to school after 1999 would know any of this. Because they were not taught this at all. The president is briefed on all his policy priorities by his cabinet and senior staff and directed by the chief. The chief, along with the senior White House office staff, I'll make sure I say it out loud so people don't get who confused, maps out the issues and themes that will be covered daily and weekly. The chief then works with the policy council, the cabinet, and office of communication, office legislation affairs to sequence and execute the rollout of policies and announcements. White House counsel and senior advisors and senior counselors are also intimately involved. Now, what should not need to happen is this kind of a breakdown when trying to explain something about government. It shouldn't need
that you have to.
It shouldn't need a Project 2025 to educate people about their own government. Because what they're saying so far has nothing to do with being anti-American, removing abortion, or killing gay men. None of that right now is in any of Agenda 2025. Right now, they're breaking down for you what you should have already known about American government. Plain and simple.
It's funny because I bet any lefty that actually read that first part, they would have given up, right? They would have stopped reading because, like, well, where's the thing where it says they're going to be like fascists or whatever? They're just going to try to get the summary. That's why they get their news from people that just dumb everything down and then give them regurgitated slop that the press office has already given them.
Right.
And Marlon, you know, you said that a lot of people aren't going to read this. I think you said that, but you got to understand what is the target demographic right now. The loudest ones on social media, X, all of them. It's usually like the late millennials and the Gen Zers. And as Marlon stated, they stopped teaching civics at a certain time. So those are the loudest ones on social media talking about what Coy said, fascism, taking away rights and all this other stuff. Why? Because they don't understand how the government works.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to jump because, again, nothing so far that they're going to cover when they cover all the offices has anything to do with the agenda itself. They're just laying out the operations of each office, which is what should have been done in school. Okay.
It feels like a lot of filler.
It is, but the thing is, it's good filler for stupid people. Because stupid people need to learn how to read and understand and comprehend. And if you want to actually figure the document out, maybe, I don't know, read. It is not that difficult. Go back to school if you're remedial and learn how to read and come back and figure it out.
There's nothing wrong with not knowing something, but it's wrong to continue to be stupid.
Be stupid.
That's right.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, based on Agenda 47, Trump attempts to dismantle the deep state and return power to the American people by literally dismantling some of this extra pork regarding these bureaucracies, like FISA courts.
Like getting rid of the eunuchs. That's what I'm talking about. It's like until you get rid of the eunuchs, you're never going to regain centralized power.
That's part of his plan. And if y'all want to look at it, it's Agenda 47, President Trump's plan to dismantle the deep state and return power to the American people, which is in fact the reality of the Constitution that the American people are supposed to be governed by.
And we will be getting to 47 today, so don't fear. Because I think this will end up going a whole lot faster than we thought, because we're judging from what I see, it seems as though they understand that the American population, unfortunately, are way more stupid than we thought they were, and you'd have to educate them in something that should be obviously known.
You know, America's literacy rate is 75% right now, right? Just pointing that out.
The Office of Political Affairs. The OPA is the primary office within the executive branch for managing the president's political interests. Although its specific functions vary from administration to administration, the OPA typically serves as a liaison between the president and associated political entities, national committees, federal and state campaigns, and interest groups. Within legal guidelines, the OPA engages in outreach, conduct casework, and if the president is up for election, assist with his campaign. The OPA may also monitor congressional campaigns, arrange presidential visits with other political campaigns, and recommend campaign staff to the office of the president personnel for service in the executive branch. Of course, this is how they hire all those crazy people, just so y'all aware of what they're saying. Okay, this is how they manage to go back and forth to figure things out. The OPA further serves as a line of communication between the White House and the president's political party. This includes both relaying the president's ambitions to political interest and listening to the needs of the political interest. This relationship allows for the exchange of information between the White House and political actors across the country. The OPA should have one director of political affairs who reports either to the chief of staff or to the deputy chief of staff. The OPA should also include various duty directors, each of whom is responsible for a certain geographical region of the country. Because nearly all White House activities are in some way inherently political, the OPA needs to be aware that all presidential actions and activities, including travel, policy, decisions, speeches, nominations, and responses to the matter of national security, and consider how they might affect the president's image. The OPA must therefore have a designated staffer who communicates not only with the other White House offices, but also with the cabinet and executive branch agencies.
Again, this is just a layout for how to handle the bureaucracy within the office. That's it.
It is insane to me that they can look at, and the one thing they take away from this document is, oh my gosh, we need to make sure that this is not going to hands of the fascist people. And nothing about this so far is in fact, if you do think this is fascist, it tells me that you think the American Constitution is a fascist document.
Yeah.
If you think it's a fascist document, you have some, I mean, some major problems. Like I don't even know if you can rectify those problems at all. I doubt you can rectify those problems because mentally you're not there. Okay, you're just not there.
It's definitely a boogeyman that they're creating.
All right, so let's go to. I want to see what section here would possibly tell them that we are going to be dictators. I know where it is. It's under general welfare.
Oh, this would be interesting.
Let's go to general welfare, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. When our founders wrote the Constitution that the federal government would promote the general welfare, they could not have fathomed a massive bureaucracy that would someday spend $3 trillion in a single year, roughly the sum combined spent by the departments covered in this section in 2022. Approximately half of the colossal sum was spent by the Department of Health and Human Services alone, the belly of the massive behemoth that is the modern administrative state. HHS is home to Medicare, and here comes where the problems are, and Medicaid, the principal drivers of our $31 trillion national debt. When Congress passed and President Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law these programs, it was set on autopilot with no plan on how to pay for them. Now, I want to say something. For those of you that think socialism and a little bit of socialism is a good thing, it always seems that way because you have to do very little. But nothing in the world is free. And because it's not free, if you don't set up things to pay it, you end up going into debt and crippling debt. And if you have no way to actually have paid it at all, that debt keeps compounding because especially if you have access to unlimited funds, you keep taking to make new, and that becomes more debt, and taking to make new, and it becomes more debt.
This is where I'll give you a pushback on this, is that a lot of these programs that they're talking about have been gutted and stolen from for other projects. Right. So Social Security being one of them is they'll take money out of Social Security when they're not supposed to, because we paid into that. That has a payable system. It should be viable. But because the government keeps stealing from it, it isn't viable anymore. Is one of the reasons.
The thing is, I don't think it should have been implemented at all. Here's the problem. When you take away that responsibility from people, to manage their own funds, and you make it, you become subservient to the government and dependent upon the government. Oh, they have my savings ready, and I'll pick it up when I'm later. So you can't blame the government when they abuse it. You gave them the power to take care of it.
Right. And but here's the thing: is like that. It's a double-edged sword. Yes, it's good and also bad. I will push back on that all day on that, because the benefits that it does provide for people who actually need it, and that's the problem. There's wide spreading abuse of the system. They put it like that. But also, they never mention the fact that the bloated, out of control spending of the Defense Department and the military industrial complex, they never mention that in any of these documents when it comes to conservatives ever.
All right. Yeah, but that's talked about in the 2025 Project 2025. Yeah,
they bring it up. They bring it up. The first year that Medicare spending was visible on the books was 1967. From that point through 2020, according to American Mainstream Initiative's analysis of the federal tallies, Medicare and Medicaid combined cost $17.8 trillion, while our combined federal deficits over that same time span was $17.9 trillion.
Jeez.
In essence, our deficit problem is a Medicare and Medicaid problem. Now, this is where they say, oh, you see, Republicans are trying to get rid of Medicaid. Now, hear me out. Like Coy said, okay, say you do decide that Medicare and Medicaid are something that you want to do. Yeah. If you don't regulate the thing that you say you want to do, or at least have a process to where you can maintain it substantially, it's best that you just not have it. But if you give them unlimited, unfettered access to the funds within that, it's pointless. Yep. It's just another laundering point for the government. And they knew that. They knew that when they implemented it, they had no sorts of checks and balances for it, because they would tell you is for your future. Yeah. And people just said, no, that's good. That's good. They never asked, do you have a checks and balance for it? Is there going to be a way to make sure that money never gets touched? Is there a way that you make sure that only the people paying in can take out? They never asked that question. Yeah. No one did. And now we're in this situation.
That's what I agree with you on. I think that it's helped a lot of people, but it's also been abused a ton, and that there is not enough regulations on it, especially when it comes to Congress and their spending.
Right.
Even if Congress removed Medicare and Medicaid, they would still fill it with something else. This is the problem. The fundamental problem is spending. There will be never enough taxes that they won't outspend that income. Right. Until you get spending under control, it won't matter if you got Medicare and Medicaid. It won't matter because that money's going to get spent somewhere else.
Because you're touching the topical problem.
Yeah, exactly.
The cut's still there. All you're doing is wiping off the ooze off the top and thinking you're doing something, but the pus is still coming out because the cut's still raw.
Right.
Yeah, especially with defense spending. Even if we cut defense spending, they would just spend it somewhere else.
Right. Plain point blank period.
Yeah.
HHS is also home to the Center of Disease. Here we go. HHS is also home to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the National Institutes of Health, the duo most responsible, along with President Joe Biden, for the irrational, destructive, and un-American mask and vaccine mandates that were imposed upon the ostensibly free people during the COVID-19 pandemic. All along, it was clear from randomized control trials, the gold standard of medical research, which is very true, that masks provide very little to no benefit in preventing the spread of viruses and might even be counterproductive. Yet the CDC ignored the high-quality CT, cherry-picked from political, malleable observational studies, and declared that everyone except children and infants below the age of 2 should don masks under the COVID. And former director HHS Civil Rights Roger Servino writes in Chapter 14 of the CDC exposed itself as perhaps the most incompetent and arrogant agency in federal government. And you saw it when Fauci did his testimony. He didn't want to answer a question, even though his agency is supposed to be beholden to the U.S. government. He didn't want to divulge, he didn't want to answer, and he did not want to give any sort of research, reasons, none of that to the American people, even though he was requiring the American people to do what he said.
Hey, Marlon, do you remember the Dallas Buyers Club that won McConaughey an Oscar? Guess who the bad guy in that film was?
Who?
Dr. Fauci. I just want to point that out. Dr. Fauci was the bad guy.
This entire document so far seems to be pushing back on what we've already been telling people, that the American government has grown too big. And I don't mean too big in what they can do for us. They've grown too big in what they can do, period, without consulting us. We had a Tea Party.
Yep. 2% tax.
We had over 2%.
Yeah.
I'm being taxed 22%.
And we're not talking $17 trillion back then.
Nope.
Okay. And here we are, underrepresented and overtaxed and oppressed in a way that no one else has ever seen in the United States history. And we're supposed to just sit back and be quiet. And not only that, during the time that everything was going on, you weren't allowed to say anything about it. Also, making an encroachment on the First Amendment. Now, I don't know how many people are understanding this, but that entire thing was based on the breaking of the First Amendment. Point blank, period. I don't understand how people don't get this.
And when we go back to the Chevron deference, is when you look at agencies like the CDC, which was brought up, that cancellation of the Chevron will stop the CDC and all these other 3-letter agencies from doing what they did. So they can't just make mandates like the CDC did. They're going back to the constitutional. They're going back to the way the country is supposed to be. And the CDC and all these other agencies just cannot come up and do things without the approval, and it has to be passed by Congress. So just understand, all this is tying into each other.
Yeah. And so this, I can easily see why they have a problem with this document already. Nor is the CDC the only villain in place here in the rise of the National Institutes of Health. Ironic, and he's dealing with both. That same little midget was dealing with both. Despite its a popular image as a benign science agency, NIH was responsible for paying for the research of in aborted baby parts, human animals, chimera experiments, which is 100% proven by court documents, proven by Congress, by the Senate, all of it to be 100% true. Nothing in this so far, no lies have been told in 2 different chapters now. Now, I can understand why you guys think this is going to be one of the things that you think is going to just take over America. No, we're going to reset. That's what we're trying to do, is reset. So far, if y'all think this is a boogeyman, let's have a discussion real quick. If you think this is a boogeyman, what exactly is boogeyman-ish about reverting to a place where the people have the power to decide. The same way y'all got mad, I mean lefties, that the courts, the Supreme Courts, threw Roe v. Wade back to the states, which is where it's supposed to be. Why y'all got mad at that? And then you use that talking point to say we're going to eradicate abortion all around. And what if they did? That would be constitutional. What's your point?
Well, why were slave masters afraid of slave revolts? It's the same thing. Is that when your populace rises up against you? Same thing with the neo-nobility. They don't like the idea of the populace rising against them. It's the same thing. It's not any different than any time in other parts of history. It's just a different face on the same character. That's it. It's the neo-nobility, people who still believe they are better than everyone else, controlling the populace, and they don't want to lose control.
If there's another department that has gone off the rails like HHS during the Obama administration, it is the once proud Department of Justice. A former counsel of the Attorney General, Gene Hamilton, writes in Chapter 17, the department has a long and noble history. I don't know about that.
Sure.
I
just
would
like the Department of Education has a long and noble history.
Look, that's not just debatable. That's a lie.
Yeah, it's an absolute lie. Yeah,
it's long, a very long history. Noble? Nah. Edmund Rudolph, the first Attorney General, took office the same year as President Washington, yet its long-standing reputation has been marred by the Biden administration abuse of department's powers to its own end. It's not just Biden. I understand he's the most current, but this has been a long-standing, non-noble venture by these people. It is not new. Hamilton writes that the department's unprecedented politicization and weaponization under Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland resulted in politically motivated and viewpoint-based prosecutions of political enemies and interference for the crimes of political allies has made the department a threat to the republic. 100% true there. The most important thing for the next Attorney General is to refocus the department and its core functions of protecting public safety and defending the rule of law while restoring its values and independence, impartially, honesty, integrity, respect, and excellence. I don't see any lies here. Now, if they go talking about the FBI, that should be completely, for me, get rid of them. We don't need them. We don't need the FBI. What do you guys think about that?
The FBI has only been a recent construct of the United States. It's only been around for about less than 100 years. So
I say get rid of
it.
And
it was always used as a pseudo secret police.
Yeah, I mean, what does the FBI do?
Gestapo stuff.
Yeah, besides go after American citizens and get intel on some grandma, some grandma that's going to church or something, or going to a school meeting or whatever. So what is their purpose? That's what I understand. That the local sheriff, that the local state troopers, that the local that they can't take care of. So why do we need the FBI to do what the locals are law enforcement can do?
The original purpose was to investigate crimes that cross state lines, right? Where jurisdiction becomes a problem. That was the idea, at least. But it ended up just being a personal agency for a certain somebody.
Yeah. As of late, anyways.
Yeah, as of late.
Yeah.
This is
no. It's always been that way. For usually one person is running the show, and it's for their own purpose politically. That's it.
This is especially true of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, a bloated, arrogant, increasingly lawless organization, especially at the top. The FBI views itself as an independent agency, which they're not, that is on par with the Attorney General, which is not, rather than an agency that is under the agent, fully accountable to him or her, which is why you see Merrick Garland, when he's before Congress, will say, that's something I have no hand in. They operate separately from me. You've heard him say this.
Yeah.
You have heard him say that the FBI operates separately from the DOJ, which it should not, it is not true. But he has to distance himself because he does not want to say that that's my arm doing my work. I can always say, it's under investigation. That's under investigation. Is it really, though? By who? The same people you say it's under investigation, so the investigation people are investigating themselves after starting an investigation?
Yeah.
So how are they going to get a conclusion? It's like me going and rob a store and says, and I show up the next day. I'm Constable Brown. I'm here to investigate your robbery. Oh, it looks like the person stole something. Yes, I'll be right back. I'm going to go back and investigate it. 10 months later, no answer. You call me. Well, what happened to it? I'm still investigating. I can't divulge the details of the investigation. Meanwhile, I'm
Of an
spending all
ongoing
your money.
investigation. Yeah.
And you're right, man. When it comes to those internal investigations, a lot of those people, even in internal affairs, they all come up together in the department.
Yep.
They all start out at some point. They all come up together and they move off to different parts of the, the bureau and different offices. So that internal investigation is done by somebody they've known for years.
Yep.
So he knows what's going on. He's sitting up there lying when he says he doesn't know. He doesn't know. So this is good. We got to rein him in or get rid of him. So
Right. Exactly. Precisely. To rein in this completely out of control bureau and reminded of his place within rather than at the top of the DOJ hierarchy, Hamilton writes that the FBI separate office of the general counsel, which with approximately 300 attorneys, separate office of legislative affairs, and separate office of public affairs should all be abolished.
Why do they even have any of those?
I'm 100% behind.
Yeah, it's definitely budgetary reasons.
I am 100% behind what that just said. And y'all can say what y'all want on the left, but this has no place at all in government, especially if they're okay. If you want to keep them around, give me a place where they can be accountable to. Because right now they're not accountable to anyone.
Apparently nobody.
In any way, shape, form, or fashion. They don't even want to be answerable to the president.
They don't even answer to subpoenas from Congress either.
Nothing.
How is that even remotely possible? When we're subpoenaed about something, we have to respond. But when an FBI agent is subpoenaed for something, he doesn't have to. How does that work?
It doesn't.
Well, because it's an ongoing investigation, and we can't divulge sources of methods.
And when it comes, and again, we're trying to get back to states' rights, correct? Everything going back to the states, kind of small, limited government, small government, state borders. So within that state, like I stated earlier, let those state agencies, whoever they are, conduct all investigations. They don't need some federal, out of control agency to come into their state and tell them how they're going to operate. Everything should be done at state level. So again, Marlon, just get rid of them. There's no need for them. They've been corrupt. I can go all the way back. I'm not that old, to J. Edgar Hoover, and all that. We can go all the way back to that. And the corruption's never stopped because we keep letting them grow. We keep funding them and we keep making them bigger.
So
the FBI has always been a corrupt organization since Hoover's days. It's never changed.
So let me ask this in terms of to confirm that we're all on the same page. So let's say, for instance, the state of Florida has their own separate state division known as Florida Bureau of Investigation.
I think they do.
Yeah. Okay. And I know Georgia does. And so when Georgia's investigating something, let's say in Podunk, Georgia, and it becomes a federal crime of sorts, FBI can come in and take jurisdiction over Georgia's, but it's still Georgia's Bureau of Investigation, which is their own state.
Consider it a tributary, like a little trickle off.
Like I said,
like little veins off of the main head.
Yep.
Yeah. So the original purpose of it was for the FBI to investigate federal crimes. But the problem is in order to justify their budgets, they've created crimes multiple times with informants and other people to justify their increase of budget over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. And like to your question, Jay, let that local, whatever you want to call them, federal bureau, whatever, and investigate those crimes within that state. Now, if you had the FBI at the federal level that was just stuck in DC, maybe they could report to them, but they shouldn't really have a hand in how they conduct their investigation.
But shouldn't a local bureau of investigation answer to the governor of the state?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
They should be. I mean, they're supposed to be there to facilitate, not to dictate
or control. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now you just what would you call it? You're a waypoint. That's all you are. You're a pass through. You're the accommodation to make sure something happens properly. You're not the arbiter. And they have since become the arbiter. And that's the biggest problem that we see here, that they become more powerful than they should be.
Yeah.
Yep.
In Chapter 19, the Department of Transportation, former DOT Deputy Assistant Director of Research and Technology, Diana, I'm not even going to try your last name, Roth, writes, in pursuit of an anti-fossil fuel climate agenda never approved by Congress, the Biden administration has raised fuel economy requirements to the level that cannot be realistically be met by most gas-powered cars. And if you watch, this is why they were talking too. I live in Washington State. Their plan is to eradicate gas-powered cars by 2030. Technically, actually, he wanted it by 2025 because California got it by 2030 and they wanted it to be better. Inslee wanted to be better than California and go to 2025. What he would say is that you can't even purchase a gas vehicle in Washington State. And after a while, you can't even import a gas-powered car into Washington State. Now, you're trying to tell me I have to buy a electric car? That's what you call encroaching on my civil liberties.
It's unconstitutional. Yeah,
this is what Cuba did. Hold on. Cuba can't give you a car. You can't have two. You have to have one. No, you can't have two houses. You have to have one. Then they went to kids. You can't have two. You have to have one. China does the same thing. What they end up doing is it's for the greater good. And you've heard this statement before. It's for the greater good. It's for everybody's health, welfare. No, it's not. You just want to, okay, and they yet to prove to me and give me a reasons why that makes any sense. Or the climate, prove it. Well, we have indexes and prove it. Well, we're still working on it, so you have no proof. You don't know how much it's going to cost. You're just hoping that I will buy into the stupid agenda and just do what you say. And that, like you say, Coy, is by definition, word textbook unconstitutionality.
Right, because even then, it's like the Congress can't make a law to like abridge your freedom of movement, right? So my choice of what vehicle I buy is my choice. The government can't dictate what I buy.
But they want to.
Yeah.
But they want to.
They're trying.
Back up. It's passed in certain places that are stupid enough to allow it. Where were we here? Thereby reducing Americans' freedoms while increasing costs. Lastly, the former acting chief of staff at the Department of Veterans Affairs, Brooks Tucker, echoing concerns expressed in other chapters, writes in Chapter 20 that the Veterans Affairs must be accountable to the needs and problems of veterans, not subservient to the patriarchal preferences of the bureaucracy. I would think that the left would be happy with this document. I'm still trying to find one aspect of any kind that seems to be a sort of dictatorial kind of thing. Have you seen anything yet that is
no? But that's not according to our logic. We have to think by their logic in order.
And Marlon, and like you stated earlier, Marlon, the left hates the Constitution. They want to get rid of the Constitution. They've said it multiple times. It's come out of all their mouths. They hate the Constitution, and because this 2025 and Project 40 or Agenda 47, which we'll talk about, is constitutionally based. You know, and they think the Constitution is fascist. This is why they're against it, because they don't know the Constitution. They don't like the Constitution. So anything they don't understand, they've never read, they think it's fascism. But it's just straight constitutionalism.
This might be one of their sticking points, because they like the whole open border thing. Our primary recommendation is that the president pursue legislation to dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. This is where I think you might be saying, this is it here. This is it. After 20 years, it has not gelled into one DHS. Instead, its various components, different missions have outweighed its decades-long attempt to function as one department, rendering the whole disjointed rather than cohesive. Breaking up the department along its mission lines would facilitate mission focus and provide opportunities to reduce overhead and achieve more limited government in lieu of the status quo DHS. We recommend that. U.S. Customs and Border Protection be combined with Immigration and Custom Enforcement, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the Department of Health, Human Services, Office of Refugee Settlement, and the Department of Justice, Executive Office of Immigration, Office of Immigration Litigation, and into a standalone border immigration agency at the cabinet level, more than 100,000 employees, making it the third largest department measured by manpower.
I just want to point out how ridiculous it is to actually see all of those three-letter agencies listed out together.
Thank you.
And how all of those, like, how do any of those do very much different from each other? That's what I want to know. It's like, why couldn't they be one department like this?
They're not. It's like side effects. Crazy. It's like side effects of a drug.
And what's the cost of it?
What is the cost?
How much is it costing us to fund these?
I know it's in the trillions. I know for a fact that it's in the trillions. I don't know if they even give you a number on that one.
So this is my problem with the whole like go after Medicare and Medicaid thing. It's like, why won't we cut down the spending of all of these different bureaucratic states in the Defense Department first before you go after people's like ability to get healthcare? I'm just sorry, you're never going to convince the American people to go after Medicare and Medicaid. It's never happening.
Now, if you look at all those departments, you have to ask yourself this: if we have so many different agencies that fall under immigration, why do we have such a problem at the border? Hundreds of thousands of people. There has to be trillions of dollars being put into these organizations combined. How come all these people can't control what's going on at the border? Why? Because it's all fraud, waste, and abuse. It's just a bunch of names that they threw out there because they get a certain amount during the fiscal year for their budget. So they have to justify their budget. So they create these side agencies to justify the money they get. Exactly what it is. And they're useless.
Now, some time ago, I don't think you guys were with me at the time, but I covered CISA because there was a massive breach. You remember that massive breach that happened to all these big mega names like Amazon and stuff like that? There was a massive breach. Yeah. And they said it was from some Chinese. It was not. It was CISA. It was locally done. It was American government that did it. There was no international breach. It wasn't Russia and it was not China. This was CISA that did it, and the documents leaked. When I did cover it, it's been, 5 years now? A little more than 5 years. That video has since been taken down by YouTube, by the way. So if you're going to go look for it, I have to try and re-find it. I have no idea where I can find it, but I know I still have the documents from CISA, and I can prove to you again that they did indeed have a hand, because the week before the crash, they announced that possibly something might be happening. You can't tell me it was unexpected and just an unintentional breach when you told me the couple of weeks before that this might be happening. If you knew, then you should. If you are supposedly the cybersecurity kings, you should have been prepped for it.
Yeah,
it shouldn't have been that big. Anyway, the federal, and then so they said the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency should be moved to the Department of Transportation. I think it should be eradicated. I don't need it. We don't want it. Get rid of it because you're causing more problems than good. You don't serve any purpose for the American people because you're not. How many cyber crimes have you actually stopped? How many breaches have you actually stopped? It's like almost every day for a full 10 years, we had heard that we had another breach, another breach, another breach. Yep. You're not good at your job, so why do you have it? If I were making bread and every day you tasted the bread, it tastes like horses behind, you think you'd keep coming back to me for bread? No. You tell me, man, shut this shop down, bro. You can't make bread.
You know why they need it, Marlon? To spy on the American people. That's exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Thank you, Patriot Act and Bush.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, crazy people.
Oh, FEMA.
Yeah, the Federal Emergency Management Agency be moved to the Department of Interior, or if combined with CISA, the Department of Transportation. Get rid of them too.
Yep.
All of these agencies do nothing at all. Their response, okay, you want proof? Hawaii.
Yeah.
You want proof that you don't do
Puerto
anything
Rico.
for anybody? Hawaii. Katrina.
Well, you can do Katrina, Puerto Rico. The list goes on and on at how the FEMA has failed every single time they've been used.
Yeah, you're worthless. As an organization, get rid of you, fire everybody, kill the department. U.S. Coast Guard be moved to the DOJ, and in time, full-scale war threaten homeland. The Department of Defense, alternate U.S. CG, should be moved to the DOD for all purposes. Thoughts?
It should go back to the DOD where it belongs.
Right.
Yeah, that's where it started.
The Secret Services, the U.S. Secret Service be divided into two, with the protective element moved to the DOJ and the financial enforcement element moved to the Department of Treasury.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. The Transportation Security Administration be privatized? No.
The TSA should be eliminated entirely.
Altogether.
Yeah,
that should be.
They have literally stopped zero crimes and terrorism.
Yeah, just kill that whole department.
It's a
waste of money.
Complete waste. The Science and Technology Directorate be moved to DOD, and the Office of Countering Weapons and Mass Destruction be moved to the FBI. Again, gotten rid of, because all you do is actually go into places that have no weapons of mass destruction. Thank you, George Bush, for telling us, and create war. You are a wartime creator. You should be gone too. Because if you're going to get put on the FBI, get rid of the FBI too, so you have nowhere to go. Get rid of you. You're worthless. Period. All the remaining and supporting components could be dismantled because their functions already exist in the moving components as well as the receiving departments. Cutting these costs would have saved American taxpayers. If you cut all of them, you're talking about our deficit in half. Literally,
exactly.
Half. Forget taxing the rich. You get rid of all these leeches. Done. We'd have so much more money. It would be crazy.
Look at what Elon Musk did with Twitter when he bought it. He cut like the majority of the staff, and it still ran just fine. That would be the same thing with the federal government. You could literally cut the government in half and it would still function just fine.
Perfectly. Unless and until this dismantling recommendation is pursued and achieved, however, DHS will statutorily continue to exist, and it needs to be any reforms accordingly. We now turn to recommend changes to DHS as it exists now. Now, I can understand why you don't like this, people, because what you're hearing is dictatorship because they're getting rid of agencies that you have been told are for your benefit. So I understand. I'm not going to call you stupid for that because, well, I can, but you're not too stupid because they've been told to you that, and they promote it to you that it's good. But let me ask this. If it was that good, do you think we'd have the kind of border crisis we have now? Because let's not get this twisted. Every last one of those agencies have a hand in things that transpire at the border. Why? Because all of it is a threat to national security.
Yeah. For people that are in charge of national security, they seem to be doing a piss poor job of it at the border.
None of it's national, none of it's secure.
Yeah. They've been letting, okay, so if China and Russia are such a threat, why are you letting military-age males cross the border into the United States unfettered?
Your guess is as good as mine's is. And I don't have an answer for that.
Or why are you allowing China to bind farmland next to military bases? Just want to point that out there.
It's just all a waste of money. It's fraud, waste, and abuse. And you notice when a lot of these agencies, I use that lightly, get audited or something like that, they don't know where the money went. You know, you're getting billions and trillions of dollars, and what are you producing? You know, if I give Marlon $1,000, said, hey, Marlon, I need a TV stand built.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give me what I asked for, I should get my money back. And that should go with the American people. If DHS, FEMA, and all these organizations don't produce a product that they say is for the American people, for us, by us, and they don't produce it, we should get money back for money they wasted.
Yeah.
Period.
So like they want to raise taxes on everybody, but like, what is your taxes actually doing for you? Like the only thing that they've actually got out there that's supposed to be for the people is Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. But even then they've managed that to mismanagement to where nobody can actually use it, even though that's literally the only thing in government that is actually supposed to be working for them.
Benji, I'm waiting to see exactly what they're all up in arms about. I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, there are some things in here that we think they want to keep that should go. In fact, it's not extreme enough, it seems.
In some cases,
like for real, like constitutionally, it's not extreme enough. They still want to keep certain departments that are unconstitutional.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to gel them into any constitutional, but I want them gone. They have no purpose. They were instituted as a way to keep war going.
Yep.
Yeah.
You come up with an excuse. We found some things over here, Mr. President. What's that? Well, it's a threat to national security. How do you prove that? Well, we can't divulge that information right now because it's a matter of national security, but we do need to go in there and take them out.
Here's my thing to the left. If we can cut these bureaucracies down, let's put it over into Medicaid so we can help pay for that.
But
they would agree to it. They would agree to it.
And here's the thing is that, again, a lot of these people on X and these politicians and all these people out there using this fear mongering, they're not betting on people to actually read it. A lot of these people that are out there posting about it's fascism, all this fear mongering, are only taking headlines. I call them headline liberals, you know, headline activists. They get a headline, they get some politician that throws it out there. It's all fear mongering and they run with it. All these people talking about it, like Marlon stated in the beginning of the podcast, they're not really digging into it. They're just taking something, throwing it out there, using fear to go after the uninformed. That's their target. It's the uninformed, low IQ people.
The amount of money they spent on those name changes is ridiculous.
How do you feel about the millions spent on the name change? That ship done sailed. You know, my days in the military are over. I'm a chef now.
I'll answer in my opinion too, is that it's ridiculous that they spent that much money just to change a name because it was offensive.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even think about stuff like that anymore. Just pay me my check every month, my retirement check and my disability, and I focus on cooking.
This the last one we'll touch on, because honestly, I'm beginning to believe that they did exactly what bro said. If you look at this like right now, okay, this is what they present to you. Say you're a lefty, and they tell you that Project 2025 wants to take care of the Federal Election Commission. You're going to panic, right? You're going to say, oh, he's going to try and rig elections or get rid of the commission altogether in order to maintain power as a king. That's what you'll hear.
Well,
no doubt that's what they're thinking.
Well, that's the talking point, that this is going to turn him into a king.
Good. So let's read that one as our last one before we get to Agenda 47. Okay. So election and commission. You see the finger here? I'm going to it. Boom. Okay. The Federal Election Commission, FEC, is an independent federal agency that began operations in 1975. I wonder how things went before 1975. Huh.
I wasn't born.
Almost like
Japanese.
Yeah.
Almost like he didn't need them.
Yeah.
Weird. To enforce the Federal Election Campaign Act, all you're missing is an L right here. An L. Fecal. Passed by Congress in 1971 and amended in 1974. FECA governs the raising and spending of funds in all federal campaigns for Congress and the presidency. The FEC has no authority over the administration of federal elections, which is performed by state governments.
Then why do you exist?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. While the FEC has exclusive counsel and enforcement authority over FECA, the U.S. Justice Department has criminal enforcement authority, which is defined as a knowing and willful violation of the law.
Right.
Huh. Because the FEC is an independent agency and is not a division or office directly within the executive branch, understand this, they have jurisdiction over something that is in the executive branch, but they're not part of the executive branch.
Yeah.
Make that one make sense. You, an outside entity with no supervision, can dictate something that you don't have jurisdiction over, and the president does.
And again, Marlon, go back to the what?
That should be eliminated and put to the states.
Go back to the Chevron. You see how this is tying into this?
There it is. There it is.
Yep.
Now I can see why y'all get mad, because you like the FEC because of what it did to Trump. But you also got mad at the FEC because what they couldn't do to Trump, because you're reading now that they don't have that kind of power.
Nope.
But you thought they did because they told you so. And then they're kind of weird. Because the FEC is an independent agent and not a division or office directly within the executive branch, the authority of the president over the action of the FCC is extremely limited. And that's by design, because they didn't want to be touched. A former FEC Commissioner, Bradley Smith, had said the FEC's regulation of campaign finance deeply impacts the First Amendment principles of free speech and association. The FEC regulates is one of the most sensitive areas of the Bill of Rights: political speech and political activities by citizens, candidates, political parties, and voluntary membership organizations that represent Americans who share common views on a huge range of important and vital public policy issues. Now,
see, this is
explain that one.
This is annoying for me because the FEC really doesn't do anything. Like, yeah, they put limits on rules and regulations for the elections and how they're supposed to go or whatever. But at the end of the day, the states are the ones responsible for running the elections in the first place. So they're supposed to be a legal authority or whatever, but it's not. Like, you can pass a federal law saying certain things are illegal even without the FEC there to enforce them, because it can be enforced through the states.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's kind of weird. Now, needed reforms. Let's see what they say. Let's get
nomination authority. No, remove it.
Let's get the crazy people active. The president's most significant power in the appointment of the 6 commissioners who govern the FEC, subject by confirmation by the U.S. Senate. Commissioners may only serve a single term in 6 years, but because they stay in office until a new commissioner has been confirmed, many commissioners continue to serve past their term. Currently, the longest-serving commissioner still at the FEC is Ellen Weintraub, whose regular term expired in 2007. Now, hear me out.
Wow.
Watch this. Watch this.
Wow, that's funny.
The president will appoint somebody he cannot control. Make that one make sense.
It doesn't.
Yeah, how can you have an appointment if you can't
0.
control the agency in the first place? Yeah.
0
It's
cents.
not under your jurisdiction. They operate outside, but they control everything inside, and you're the one that has to appoint them.
It's more bureaucratic bloat that should just be eliminated.
Don't need it. Give it back to the states. Give it back to the states. Let the states control it.
And before people get my idea twisted here, is I'm not saying that we shouldn't have election rules. I'm saying that we don't need an office to make those rules. We have Congress for a reason.
Yes, and we have election rules, and we have governors, and all the rules apply to every state exactly the same. That's how you control it and let the states control it.
Everything's
So
taken
right.
care of.
Yeah, everything's taken care of.
There is a slot for everything right now that they have built a secondary slot for that has become more important than the initial one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they have told you nothing about what the original intent. They just tell, well, we have to make sure we regulate the original because the original wasn't working. How do you prove to me it wasn't working?
If the FEC had a real legitimate thing, they should be doing antitrust against the Democrat and Republican Party.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Marlon, what happens when you have, you know, a hierarchy secondary controlling how each state operates? So there's a hierarchy. You have a lot of influence, right? So this hierarchy has control on how states run their elections. So without them, each state can take care of their business separately from every other state and handle their business as long as they follow the rules that are put out by the Constitution, that are in the Constitution. As long as they follow the rules, constitutional law. That's what we care about. Follow those rules. You have no problems. You don't need these other organizations.
So I did a little diagram in front of me here. I'm not going to be able to show it, but I'll tell you. It's like this. So the president's here. The president appoints the FEC head, but the FEC can go above the president and dictate what he can do.
Yes. Makes no sense.
Make that make sense. It's
zero.
It's absolutely backwards. Absolutely backwards how they have this, which is why it needs to go away. Under FECA, no more than 3 commissioners may be from the same party. While that means that a commissioner could be an independent or a member of the Libertarian or Green parties in practice, this has meant that the FEC has always had 3 Democrat and 3 Republican commissioners. There is a long-held political tradition since the FEC's founding, which is why, again, it should never be there. You're adding one more step
because of that reason.
Yeah, you have one more step. You already have that in the electorates. I don't know why you need that on another branch that's going to take care of something else that you get elected for by the person that you end up controlling.
But it's funny to me that people tend to forget that the Republican and Democrat parties are private organizations. They are not a government organization.
Thank
you. There is a long-held political tradition since the FEC's founding that when a commissioner slot held by a member of the opposition party political opens up, the president consults with and nominates the chosen nominee for the opposition party leader in the Senate. In exchange, the Senate party leader and his caucus agree to approve the president's nominee to fill an empty position for the president's political party. Again, all they're saying is that you're talking about somebody that you have no control over that will eventually control you, but yet still you can appoint them. It makes no sense to have the position at all if all you're telling me is that it doesn't matter what you do internally as a president, it can always be messed with by somebody you appointed that has more power than you.
They should file a lawsuit against the FEC as being a voter suppression organization. Because they make up rules and laws in order to keep certain individuals out of elections. So it's election interference. Yeah.
So if they ask for the abolition of FEC, I don't see it as a problem, but I can see why the left would think it would be because what they think, and since they're stupid to law, they think the FEC is supposed to be something that's supposed to be over the president, but it's not even part of his section. But they want to be. They control the part of it that he controls, but he has to appoint them, and so they make them more. Again, it's a pointless position, and it should be removed altogether. It should be removed.
There is no office above the president, but they're only equal to the executive and judicial branch. So the entire portion of what our Constitution was supposed to be. The president is not all powerful, but he's a co-equal leader in the government with Congress and the judicial branch. People tend to forget that.
Yeah. None of this document says anything about being a
fascist,
a fascist of any kind. If anything, it doesn't do nearly enough to remove the entities that have long since kept the American people subverted.
Well, we're limited governor.
Hey, Marlon, do you have a link to that document we could put in the chat if people actually
want to
grab it
right now
and read it?
It's a 900-page document.
It's long.
A beast.
Yeah. But it's good talking points when you go on these social media platforms and you hear these liberal talking heads running their mouth about something they know nothing about. You have it right there in front of your face and you can call them out in real time.
Let me
your policy doesn't go too far enough.
I don't understand it, man. Project, let me get the full thing here. I want to make sure I get the link.
I think Jay put it in the
there it is. Okay, good.
Yeah, like I think if the lefties are listening to us, they're like, God, you guys are extreme. Why? Because we want to get rid of bureaucratic bloat. Like
Here you go.
And I'm the one sitting here defending Medicare and Medicaid, saying that we should cut the administrative state and pay for that. So like,
yeah, it's just, I mean,
Right,
I'm so small government. I don't want the government involved in anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
Zero.
Right. So
I view it as a necessary evil, but it should be limited.
Look, as far as I can see, the policy has nothing at all to do with anything fascist, anything overreaching. In fact, it's not reaching far enough. All the talking points that they say are in there are not in there whatsoever. There's no talk about taking over reproductive rights or anything like that. I don't know where y'all are getting this from. I really don't know where you're getting it from. But the stupidity has to stop at some point. I'm going to hold on. But to exit from it, I'm going to read the headlines one more time and each of the underlying thing so you can figure out for yourself what it is. Section 1 is taking the reins of the government, White House, Executive Office, Central Personnel Agencies. Section 2, Common Defense, Department of Defense, Department of Home Security, Department of State, Intelligence Community, Media Agencies, Agency of the International Development. Section 3, the General Welfare, Department of Agriculture, Education, Energy, Environmental Protection, Department of Health, which we talked about, Housing, Interior, the Department of Justice, Labor, Transportation, and Veteran Affairs. So far, nothing about reproductive rights, unless you want to put that under health. But even in that, they never mentioned it.
No.
The economy, Department of Commerce, Treasury, Federal Reserve, Small Business Administration, and Trade. And then finally, 5 independent regulatory agencies. The Financial Regulatory Agency, Federal Communications Commission, Federal Election Commission, and Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah.
And Marlon, before we go over to Agenda 47, can you pull up the list of people that helped write this? There should be a list on there. It's like 100 and something of them. And tell me if you see Donald Trump's name anywhere on that list of names.
Yeah.
Because they
don't even mention him in the document.
He's not mentioned. They keep tying it to him. But if you look at the list, you won't see Donald Trump's name in there, on there, with help writing this Fashion Project 2025.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I get it nice and big. Okay.
Just so the lefties can see it.
300% large. Advisory. Okay, make sure you can see it. The advisory board. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to, what was his name? Donald. It's under
J.
D. Okay.
Yeah.
Defense of Freedom Institute. Okay.
Let's
try.
Those are all think tanks. Every single one of them.
INP Young.
Those are, yeah.
That's
no,
it.
those are
those are the think tanks. There should be the names too, right?
No, that's the one.
No, they don't list the individual names because you would have to list the individual names of the institutions. No,
Okay.
they quote people from that, and one of the people involved in this happened to be on Trump's administration in the previous term.
Yeah,
even though he's not currently in Donald Trump's organization. Just want to point that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so his agenda 47. I'm only going to pick the ones that may seem that the left will have a problem with. Okay. War on cartels. If you got a problem with that, you should be arrested with the cartels. Veteran homelessness in America. If you prefer the illegal aliens, you need to be sent to their country as well.
Yep.
No welfare for illegal aliens. Let's see what he says about that one.
No, that's a good one.
That's good. I don't have a problem with that one.
Crooked Joe Biden is running a nonstop conveyor belt importing illegal aliens from all over the world into our country, and the Biden Department of Homeland Security is abusing its so-called parole authority to give them more governmental benefits than many law-abiding citizens, including our vets. Our vets are being taken advantage of. Our citizens are being taken advantage of. It's very unfair, and it's not going to stand. Under this horrendous abuse of power, millions of illegals will be eligible for billions and billions of dollars in welfare benefits, courtesy of you, the American taxpayer. So not only is Crooked Joe surrendering your borders and your sovereignty, he is stealing your hard-earned money to redistribute it to people who have no business being in our country. They should be in their country. This is not sustainable by anybody, certainly not sustainable by us. The United States is trillions of dollars in debt, yet the radical left Democrats are illegally dispensing public benefits to illegals while they try to massively raise your taxes. The radical left communists hate you, and they hate our middle class. Under Biden's scheme, the benefits that will go to illegal aliens include food stamps, free health care, welfare checks, and a host of other programs, the likes of which you would not even believe. In addition, Biden is also giving illegal aliens work permits to take jobs away from American citizens. And then if they have children, not only do the children get automatic citizenship, but they unlock a trove of additional government benefits flowing to illegal immigrant households. In the meantime, our vets suffer and our citizens suffer. On day one of my new administration, we will shut down this travesty and defend the wealth of hardworking middle-class families. I will stop the outrageous abuse of parole authority. I will reinstate my action making illegals ineligible for public housing. We will terminate all work permits for illegal aliens, and I will demand that Congress send me a bill blocking any future president from abusing his power to distribute welfare benefits in this manner. It's all being paid for by the American taxpayer. Like automatic citizenship for children of illegal aliens, welfare is a gigantic magnet drawing people from all over the world. They want to come to the United States. They want to feast off the sweat and savings of the American taxpayer. It's not fair. It's not just. We're not going to let it happen. I will end it all immediately. Thank you.
And that's the thing is, like, even in Europe, they don't allow illegals or people that aren't a citizen to be a part of the healthcare system in that way. They still have to pay for things. They still have to put something into the system.
Yep.
No. Except not here for some reason.
This is where the lefties lose their mind, because him talking about that was where him saying that they link it to this.
Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
for?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill.
That's not retribution. I'm going to be, you know, he keeps, we love this guy. He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
No.
You know what's crazy? Historically, in Roman times, the dictator was actually supposed to come in to fix things in a time of trouble. But now it's becoming a totally different namesake. But what the dictator was supposed to do was to break the monotony of a crippled republic.
Well, in this case, none of what he stated is dictatorial.
Nope.
I'm sorry, but if you notice a problem, it's your job to fix it. And if the people that didn't Biden just become a dictator?
Yeah.
Didn't he pass an executive order on the border?
Yep.
Huh.
You see the voting rights thing that they shot down already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and the thing with his dictator comment, that's the only part that the left will use.
Mm-hmm.
And just like everything else, when it came to Charlottesville, anything Trump says, they only take a little part and then they run with it. So every time you see these leftists on, especially on X is horrible. They're always saying Trump wants to be a dictator. They never say the rest. So now all these smooth brains, these low IQ voters, that's all they know. Trump said he's going to be a dictator. When? How? Well, I don't know. That's what I heard.
And then they'll run with everything else that they think he'll do.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's funny. Like, historically speaking, a dictator during the Roman Republic was supposed to come in, do the thing that they needed him to do, and then he would step down. It wasn't a permanent position. It was a temporary position. The only reason it became what it is today is because of Caesar.
So let's look and see what else he has in Agenda 47. The American Academy. Trump plans to announce a plan to revolutionize higher education by systeming excessively large endowments from private universities towards a new institution called the American Academy. I don't see a problem. It's part of that's what you call an agenda thing. That's not a law thing.
They do have massive endowments that are just sitting there with no reason.
Mm-hmm. Auto workers pledge to homeschool families. Would that be one that you think they'd consider dictatorial?
Yes, because they are talking about the Department of Education under that Project 2025.
Well, let's hear it. Yeah, let's hear what he has to say.
As president, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice. Remember that.
They need to
term.
fire their editor.
And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more. To every homeschool family, I will be your champion. Do not vote Democrat. They are looking to destroy you. If you don't mind my saying that, Joe Biden can't put two sentences together, and yet he's looking to destroy you. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote for Crooked Joe. Vote for Honest Donald. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna say this is annoying that he looks so cold in those videos. They really need to fire their editor.
I love it because you got to understand with this $10,000, and this is my opinion, $10,000 to every family that wants to homeschool their child. Where do you think that $10,000 comes from? The Department of Education funding. That's where they're going to start pulling it from. So when the families start realizing, like, I get $10,000 to homeschool my kid, screw school. You're going to see more and more families start pulling their kids away from these indoctrination centers. And then more and more funding is going to get away from the Department of Education.
Even then, it's like the DOE hasn't done anything to improve education in America. Because like you look at where if there's 75% of people that can actually read in the United States, and of those, they are only at a 5th grade level of reading and comprehension.
Yeah.
Like if that's a successful agency, I don't know why it still exists.
It's a waste.
Like there's no other place where you can fail that hard and still keep all your money.
Now I'm going to answer this question the way I see this. I don't see how where I live and what taxes I pay should influence my child's education.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't see how that makes any sense whatsoever. How you can even think of that making sense. So because I live in a certain type of area, it should affect what kind of funding my school gets. So you're trying to tell me I should be perpetually poor.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to tell me that, okay, and not just because my child's going to turn out stupid, right? And if my child turns out stupid, he will remain poor. And this will continue as a continual cycle.
Yeah.
Which is why I think he should do this and get rid of all the taxes. If he got rid of all these, like you said, property tax, why am I paying some tax on something I own? You say I own. That don't make no sense to me.
Which
why was I?
Go ahead.
I was like, why was I? When I owned my home, I was paying property tax, and then of course there's a school tax in there. Why was I paying taxes for a school that I didn't even have no kid that went to the school?
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is that tying property taxes to education is a mistake. Like doing it to like I think they do that here in Arkansas, where the freaking lottery is tied to the pool of money that they can pull from education, which makes more sense. Because like if you're going to be stupid enough to waste your money on lottery, you should at least give it to something good. The first situation.
Exactly. Let's see what else he's got. Returning production, essential medicines back to America, and not that I don't see how that's being a dictator. But President called for the death penalty of human traffickers. If you disagree with that, you're a human trafficker.
It's funny because the people that are like so like slavery was such a bad institution and all this, the lefties, then why wouldn't you agree to people that actually kidnap and enslave people to face the death penalty? Yeah. I know, right? Because like oppression and all that.
Oh, this might be it right here. Protecting students from the radical left and Marxist maniacs infecting educational institutions.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good
that'd be
one.
one of them.
That's one. The big
Yep.
pharma.
That's
Yeah.
another route.
And
The left used to be against big pharma. I used to remember when they were.
drug addiction. So we'll go back to that. Day one, ending executive citizenship patrol. He already talked about that
Yep.
really in kind.
Yeah.
So where is it? Where did we see that?
Human
There.
trafficking.
Okay, there we go.
Are they infecting?
Yeah, that's the one we want.
For many years, tuition costs at colleges and universities have been exploding, and I mean absolutely exploding. While academics have been obsessed with indoctrinating America's youth, the time has come to reclaim our once great educational institutions from the radical left, and we will do that. Our secret weapon will be the college accreditation system. It's called accreditation for a reason. The accreditors are supposed to ensure that schools are not ripping off students and taxpayers, but they have failed totally. When I return to the White House, I will fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics. We will then accept applications for new accreditors who will impose real standards on colleges once again and once and for all. These standards will include defending the American tradition and Western civilization, protecting free speech, eliminating wasteful administrative positions that drive up costs incredibly, removing all Marxist diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucrats, offering options for accelerated and low-cost degrees, providing meaningful job placement and career services, and implementing college entrance and exit exams to prove that students are actually learning and getting their money's worth. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment.
Dang.
Oof.
A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you.
Good.
He should add on that list, I think, of taking the money and redistributing it to actual worthy causes should be included in this is a nonprofit organizations that only perpetrate money laundering.
Mm-hmm.
Going after them.
With what he just said, I really can understand why the left are mad. Because if you do that, you get rid of DEI, you get rid of affirmative action. And they say, well, that's against black people. You tell me black people are too stupid to figure their own way out? You see, this is what we tell you, that the left is the most racist people out there. What they tell you, that you are not capable of attaining something on your own merit. You have to attain it simply because you were born a certain shade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to qualify. Your shade should get you in because of what happened to your ancestors, which means you are too stupid to gain it by yourself. When there's literal proof out there that education and what you bring to the table is going to get you somewhere.
And plus all of the data points that everything that they've done in terms of affirmative action has been detrimental to the education of other individuals, especially the black community.
And you know what else, if I was the Don, I would have put in there? I would make things like Marxism, communism, all that stuff, I would make it illegal to even speak of, outside of showing people the negative impact of it, to even speak of and be taught in America. Whether it be in politics, whether it be in, schools. If you're funded by the government, you cannot push that ideology.
You mean that right there?
Where?
Radical left and Marxist. It's like the only problem is it pushes against the First Amendment and it becomes a constitutional issue. That's the only
Well,
not really.
But
Not really.
I don't disagree with the sentiment. I just think that it wouldn't actually work.
Well, here's why it wouldn't, especially if their ideals are not based on the Constitution.
That's right.
You're not violating the First Amendment or any of the things in the Constitution, especially when your agenda is about breaking that constitutional law.
Yeah.
Why would I allow you to be around if you're not going to follow the Constitution? Remember, Marxists and leftists don't want the Constitution the way it is. They want it different. And if you want it different, then you're obviously going against the one thing that makes the country what it is. And if that's the case, you're by nature, you're violating the Constitution.
Yeah. We no longer have a shared American culture. It doesn't exist anymore.
No,
it hasn't for a very long time.
We shouldn't. The culture should be based on the Constitution.
Didn't they make?
That's what I mean. There's not constitutionalists on both sides anymore.
Didn't they make communism illegal after like World War II or something like that?
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of anti-communist.
Even if you spoke about it, you could be fined or arrested, and we've gotten away from that. I think we should.
Well, specifically in the Civil Rights Bill, it mentions that communists do not afford those protections.
That's right.
I want to remind people of that. Even in the Civil Rights Bill, it says communists aren't people.
Yeah, they're not people. So let's go back to that.
Yeah, so I'm all for that. So even if I don't listen to, I'm agreeing 100% that we should get rid of them because they're trash. They're trash people. They want to destroy stuff. It's never worked. It never will work because it's a selfish organization, a selfish thing. Now, this part, I want to hear. This one.
Ooh.
This one.
There is no more dire threat to the American way of life than the corruption and weaponization of our justice system. And it's happening all around us. If we cannot restore the fair and impartial rule of law, we will not be a free country. As president, it will be my personal mission to restore the scales of justice in America. We want fairness and equality under the law. And to that end, I will appoint U.S. attorneys who will be the polar opposite of the Soros district attorneys and others that are being appointed throughout the United States. Very unfair to our population, very unfair to our country. They will be the 100 most ferocious legal warriors against crime and communist corruption that this country has ever seen. As we completely overhaul the Federal Department of Justice and FBI, we will also launch sweeping civil rights investigations into Marxist local district attorneys. And that's what we have. They're Marxists in many cases. By refusing to charge countless crimes, these Soros prosecutors appear to be engaging in selective enforcement based on illegal racial discrimination. In Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and every other city where these maniacs have taken over, the DA's offices should face federal subpoenas of their staff, their emails, and their records to determine whether they have blatantly violated federal civil rights law. As part of this effort, there should be a federal inquiry into the Soros prosecutor in Austin, Texas, who charged a veteran with murder for defending himself against a threat by a heavily armed member of a radical left mob. I will also order the Department of Justice to establish a task force on protecting the right to self-defense, which is under siege nationwide. In addition, we will have a complete investigation into the use of police state tactics by federal authorities to arrest conservatives and Christians. We will find out who ordered it, and we will hold them totally accountable.
Real quick. That's proof that what we talked about when we'll talk about it Wednesday, that plan that was given out as part of what Biden was going to do is indeed true.
Yep.
You see, the left likes to accuse people of stuff that they themselves are doing.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? Ain't that something?
What did Barack Obama say, and how you know it's true? He said, you flood the public square with enough sewage that they will be confused, or something. I'm alluding to about what he says. So it's kind of like that. You flood them with enough crap from Marxism that they don't really know what's right or wrong. They don't know what's true anymore.
They'll go for it.
Yep, they'll just run with it. They don't know.
We have have to confront this radicalized law in schools. You take a look at what they've done to our schools, our beautiful schools. We have to reform the far left bar associations and stop the purge of conservative lawyers from major law firms. I will do whatever it takes to save our legal system, among the greatest achievements of Western civilization, from the Marxist barbarians who seek to destroy it. And we will do that. We will save it. Thank you very much.
Now, what did he say that's fascists at all?
He called them barbarians.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
He's fascist because he's going after his political opponents. That's what
Opponent,
yeah.
So again, going back to he's fascist because he wants to get back to the way the country's supposed to be.
No, he's fascist for fighting back. That's what it really
Yeah.
comes down to. Is they don't like the fact that he's against what they want, and what they really want is absolute control. That's it. Like the only difference between the left and the right is the right's willing to share power, the left is not.
Again, I understand. This is again, his agenda is pretty straightforward, and it's not like you can't just go watch it for yourself. I know what you'll say. Well, he always lies, so I can't believe him. Okay, then don't say you didn't know, though. You
And
can't
look,
say that he didn't tell
right
you.
there. We must protect Medicare and Social Security.
Oh
That's
no, no. He's going to get rid of it. That means he's going to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's
right. But that's the difference. That's the difference between what we just read in Project 2025 and his, is that he says we shouldn't, and they are saying we should.
Good. Yeah.
And like I said, you're never gonna be able to convince the American people to get rid of Medicare and Social Security. It's never happening. It's just not.
But he's going to get rid of it because he's Project 2025.
Yeah,
right.
Don't believe what you see here.
He's a
I mean,
fascist.
okay, I'm going to play it, and I guarantee you what he's going to say is a complete opposite of what the headline says. Just watch. I'm telling you, Trump's a liar. Just watch.
Remember, Kamala Harris said he wanted to get rid of it, and Joe Biden.
Under no circumstances should Republicans vote to cut a single penny from Medicare or Social Security.
Dang it!
I was waiting for him
what
to
I
say
said.
it. I was waiting for him to say it.
Dang it, man!
Now I have to vote for him.
Crap.
Jeez.
Like I literally just said that too. It's like this,
he just came straight out the gate and just dropped it.
We should never get rid of it. Yeah, we shouldn't. We should gut the bureaucratic state and pay for it. There you go.
He's like, tiger uppercut.
Dang it.
Tiger uppercut.
It's like you want to confuse the leftists, tell them, hey, we should cut the bureaucratic state of the United States and then pay for universal health care. And they'd be like, what? Because it won't compute in their brain because they can't figure out how that's supposed to work.
Or
like, how can I get the thing I want, but then also not the other thing that I want?
They're dumb enough to say yes, though.
Yeah.
Okay, just say no.
It's like,
to help pay for Joe Biden's reckless spending spree, which is more reckless than anybody's ever done or had in the history of our country. Biden has blown out the federal budget, wasted trillions on left-wing lunacy and the ridiculous Green New Deal, which is a tremendous problem and embarrassment to us, and thrown open our treasury and our borders to migrants from all over the world. In fact, migrants that are coming from prisons and migrants that are coming from mental institutions are being dropped into the United States, and we do nothing about it. I had the safest border in the history of our country just 2 years ago, and now we have probably the worst border in the history of the world. I don't think any country has ever had anything like we have right now. Well, we absolutely need to stop Biden's out-of-control spending. The pain should be borne by Washington bureaucrats, not by hardworking American families and American seniors. The seniors are being absolutely destroyed in the last 2 years. Cut the hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars going to corrupt foreign countries. Cut the mass releases of illegal aliens that are depleting our social safety net and destroying our country. Cut the left-wing gender programs from our military. Cut the billions being spent on climate extremism. Cut waste, fraud, and abuse everywhere that we can find it, and there's plenty of it. But do not cut the benefits our seniors worked for and paid for their entire lives. Save Social Security. Don't destroy it. The Democrats are looking to destroy Social Security. We're not going to let them do it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
There it is. He said it.
He's going to destroy Social Security in America, though.
That's what I heard.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to implode it.
That's what I heard. I heard he said he was going to be a dictator in that statement too. Now, this is the last one we'll play. And I think this is the best one. The Free Speech Initiative. Because, you know, they want to do the hate speech thing, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what you say.
The Office of Disinformation, anybody?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple, just like dominoes, one by one. They'll go down. That's why today I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left-wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. And reclaim is a very important word in this case because they've taken it away. In recent weeks, bombshell reports have confirmed that a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, left-wing activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence the American people. They have collaborated to suppress vital information on everything from elections to public health. The censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately. And here's my plan. First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health, Human Services, the FBI, the DOJ, no matter who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified. These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, regulatory, and constitutional offenses. To assist in these efforts, I am urging House Republicans to immediately send preservation letters, and we have to do this right now, to the Biden administration, the Biden campaign, and every Silicon Valley tech giant, ordering them not to destroy evidence of censorship. Third, upon my inauguration as president, I will ask Congress to send a bill to my desk revising Section 230 to get big online platforms out of censorship business. From now on, digital platforms should only qualify for immunity protection under Section 230 if they meet high standards of neutrality, transparency, fairness, and non-discrimination. We should require these platforms to increase their efforts to take down unlawful content such as child exploitation and promoting terrorism, while dramatically curtailing their power to arbitrarily restrict lawful speech. Fourth, we need to break up the entire toxic censorship industry that has arisen under the false guise of tackling so-called mis- and disinformation.
There it is.
The federal government should immediately stop funding all nonprofits and academic programs that support this authoritarian project. If any U.S. university is discovered to have engaged in censorship activities or election interferences in the past, such as flagging social media content for removal of blacklisting, those universities should lose federal research dollars and federal student loan support for a period of 5 years and maybe more. We should also enact new laws laying out clear criminal penalties for federal bureaucrats who partner with private entities to do an end run around the Constitution and deprive Americans of their First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. In other words, deprive them of their vote. And once you lose those elections, and once you lose your borders like we have, you no longer have a country. Furthermore, to confront the problems of major platforms being infiltrated by legions of former deep staters and intelligence officials, there should be a 7-year cooling off period before any employee of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DNI, DHS, or DOD is allowed to take a job at a company possessing vast quantities of U.S. user data. Fifth, the time has finally come for Congress to pass a digital Bill of Rights. This should include a right to digital due process. In other words, government officials should need a court order to take down online content, not send information requests such as the FBI was sending to Twitter. Furthermore, when users of big online platforms have their content or accounts removed, throttled, shadow banned, or otherwise restricted, no matter what name they use, they should have the right to be informed that it's happening, the right to a specific explanation of the reason why, and the right to a timely appeal. In addition, all users over the age of 18 should have the right to opt out of content moderation and curation entirely and receive an unmanipulated stream of information if they so choose. The fight for free speech is a matter of victory or death for America and for the survival of Western civilization itself. When I am president, this whole rotten system of censorship and information control will be ripped out of the system at large. There won't be anything left. By restoring free speech, we'll begin to reclaim our democracy and save our nation. Thank you, and God bless America.
It's true. I agree with that. There's the other thing that needs to be added into that is the Digital Consumer Rights Act is what I would call it, is that the ability to, when you buy something, you own it. It doesn't matter if it's digital or not. If I pay for something, it's mine. So a company can't just arbitrarily ban my account, for instance, because of speech I made on another platform, and I lose access to things I paid for.
Yep, true.
Ain't that crazy?
So like, or when I pay for something and the company says we're no longer offering it, and it's technically you don't own digital copies, it's just a lease. Well, then neither is your trademark because it doesn't actually exist either. It's a digital copy of something. So if I use your trademark, it's fine, right? But if I buy something, it's not mine. It still belongs to the company for some reason. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Now,
so that's what I would add.
You've seen, you've heard, the information's out there. It's not like you can't gain access. There's nothing that you have to go hunt for. It's in the open. It's in the public domain. The news is not the arbiter of this information. They can't tell you what you need to know. You have to find out for yourself. Stop letting other people push you around and tell you what to think, how to think, when to think. You have the option to go and read this stuff for yourself and make your own conclusions. Even if you come to the same conclusion you had before, you come to it at least by your own admission and your own investigation. If you don't do that, you're trash and you shouldn't be listened to. You're just another shill and you're a talking mouthpiece and you have no educational purpose whatsoever. You should not be heard. You could talk, but you shouldn't be heard because you're a dummy. If the information is there and you don't want it, fine. But you can't go around telling people they don't know something when it's right there in black and white. We can tell you about it all day long, but if you're too stupid to want to know, that's on you, not on us.
And to that point, when it comes to creators, podcasters, influencers, whatever you want to call them, and your favorite ones that you watch their podcast, you watch their content, and they share information and you trust the information they share, still go and read it for yourself. Always go and research stuff for yourself. We put out information. We're not lying to you guys about the information. We show you receipts. We show you the links, but you still need to read it. This is why we post the links in the chat. So you guys can go and read it, and then you can share with other people, and that's how information and truth gets out. You share what you share what you find. You read it, you share it, they share it, and it continues on. It can't just stop here. So whatever you guys are watching, this podcast needs to be shared. The information that we shared in the chat with the 2025 Project 2025 needs to be shared. Then once it starts getting out, you open a floodgate of information. That's the way it works.
And also, I would always recommend getting Aristotle's Rhetoric. If you want to know how information is actually being disseminated to you and what they're trying to convince you of, this will be a good blueprint to understand arguments and how people will convince you of things that you probably shouldn't listen to.
Yes.
Yeah. And look, if this kind of information is there and people don't go after it, it tells you one very important thing. The propaganda machine has worked. It's worked. It's made Americans dumber than boxes of rocks, to where they don't want to get to work to do it. They want to just get spoon fed. It reminds me of Wall-E. You remember Wall-E? Where, where he was sent to clean up Earth, but all the humans were on this ship and robots fed them, and all they did was float around to the point where their bones are all floating around in their body. That's what they want for America. They want you to be fed by them, carried around by them, dependent on them, and you don't need to do anything but that. Stop. Stop. Touch grass, touch information, get the stuff out there. Because if you don't, all you're going to do is do what they want you to do. And before too long, you turn around and want to do something, and you realize you've given up that one last bit of freedom that you could at least have in America that's left.
That's correct.
For those of you that watch this, it's a long one, but it's a needed one. Share it. We're going to try and make some snippets of it, little short parcels of it, and try and piece it apart. It's going to be a little bit difficult just because it's so much stuff that referenced before and after. The best thing is just to get off your TikTok timer in your head of 1 minute, and try and expand it. Watch for 5, 10, watch for 20 minutes, watch for 30 minutes, and get that brain section off of the Instagram reels. You have to stop. Just stop. It's not going to get any better if you don't do that informational, at least check process. Wednesday. Woo! Wednesday is going to be the day we prove to you that the Democrats are indeed doing what they say President Trump is going to do. If you haven't seen the short video, we're going to be talking about their agenda, which is in full swing right now in black and white, 4K, and in color. And when you're done, you either believe one side or the other, but you can't say it's not because you didn't know and you weren't offered the information. You can only say you didn't care. Okay. Friday will still be Famous Fridays, and we have a few. I think Scott D. Henry is on the board for this Friday. If you don't know who Scott D. Henry is, you might want to go check that fool out. I've seen some stupid people in my time, but Scott D. Henry takes the cake for stupid. Like he does. Like he's like he's like what's his name? Donkey. Grins all the time and think that's the best way to make people be listen to you.
Wasn't he grifting at one time?
He's always grifting.
Yeah, he's a grifter too.
People always grift. Here's the thing. The reason, one of the bias for me when it comes to rhetoric is I actually have my degree in rhetoric. So that kind of makes sense. But we actually used to teach what rhetoric was back in the early 50s. And we only stopped until recently that we stopped teaching what rhetoric was.
Well, they still teach it. It's just not rhetoric. They call it that though.
It's not though.
They rhetorically teach rhetoric.
And that's a word leftists like to throw around, rhetoric, all the time. They hear them say it, rhetoric.
So like English teaches you the components of language. Rhetoric helps you figure out how to write and critically think and create arguments. It's always about argumentation.
That's the problem in our country. Critical thinking is gone. Because as Marlon stated, everyone relies on reels and shorts and 15 seconds of information. Then they think they're informed, but they're not, because they're only getting that much. So the critical thinking skills are gone because they're relying on 15 seconds to a minute video that give them the information when they should actually be digging in and researching it themselves.
Hamster wheel goldfish.
There's another book I would recommend. It's called Everything's an Argument. It's I actually took the class that the author from the author and offered. UT.
So we'll be back on Wednesday to expose the Democrats, because unlike what they say, we actually can prove that they are actually doing what they say other people are doing. We'll have that proof come Wednesday. That's the book there.
What's the Everything's name of the topic? The name of the topic, Marlon, again?
Oh, let me bring up the hang on 1 second. It is called The Secular Democrats of America, the Biden-Harris Agenda Exposed. Make sure you check this out. Go get your notifications turned on. It's ready for going live on Wednesday already. You can go to our YouTube page, click the notification bell on there, and make sure you get that notification half hour before it pops on. Share that so that people can know that it's coming on. And we'll continue to do stuff like this for you, because here's the thing. No other platform, like I said at the beginning, is going to do this. They are too interested in getting that shout out or the hype. We don't want just hype. Hype ain't gonna give you meat. Hype will only give you some sugar, and then you'll get a rush, and then you forget what you got. This information is going to be something that you cannot refute because it's in depth. And they don't like that, and that's okay that they don't like it, but we'll continue to do what we have to do to make sure the American population gets educated on stuff. You're going to say something, Coy?
Yeah, I was going to say, Diane, rhetoric is diarrhea of the mouth. No, sophists are diarrhea of the mouth.
When you're a
because they say whatever.
yes.
Yeah, when you're a sophist, you say whatever you think people need to hear in order to win. That's
tickling ears. When you don't want to be that, you employ rhetoric to where you can break it apart and make sure you allocate what needs to be allocated properly.
Yeah,
just so you know. So anyway, we'll catch you guys on Wednesday. Straight Talk will be an interview tomorrow, so don't miss that one. It should be a good one. She's coming to disprove me. It's not going to be an argument, but she's coming to give me some information that she thinks I don't have. So
see how that works out.
Yeah. You know how that works.
I know it works.
Yeah. So we'll catch you guys then. In the meantime, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to do all the good things in terms of getting our merch. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Exactly. Love you, chat.
Peace.
Oh.